welcome to Artistic Adventures. We're up to episode 7 in this adventure, and we're going to keep going until we get this cute guy made. Today, we're going back to our mold that we have completed, and as you can see, I've marked sort of a zigzag pattern or Greek key pattern on that white stripe down the back, and that's going to be what we cut out to be able to get the baby out of the mold. So what we need to do now is take a really sharp X-Acto, and I would suggest putting a new blade in because this is pretty thick silicone and we're going to have to cut through it. But you also don't want to cut into the baby unless you have to. I mean, it really doesn't matter at this point because the mold has been made. But you don't want to cut any other part of the silicone on the inside. That would ruin the mold. So right now I'm just taking out that clay that wasn't baked that I put on the bottom to hold this up when we were balancing it on its head. And now the rest of the body and the sprue there is baked. So I just want to get this unbaked clay out and just, put it aside so we don't get it all over the silicone mold. And now I'm just going to start trying to cut this thing open, and hopefully this is going to work. So we're doing it in that key pattern so that we can lock it back together when we get ready to do the actual mold. And hopefully it's not going to leave much of a mark on the inside of the actual silicone piece that we're producing. And even if it does, there's ways that we can make that look better, so I'll show you that if we get to that point. With silicone, there's all these options with things you could fill in, so even if you have to cut something off and it leaves a hole or you have a bubble, there's ways that we can deal with that. And we're definitely going to be dealing with that on this baby Yoda. For one thing, we're not molding the ears with him. I'm going to show you how I mold the ears later in this video, but it just felt like those ears are so wide. They're as wide as his head, and that much on either side would have really added an almost, I think, impossible way to do the envelope mold. So I'm going to try to just glue them to his head once we get him out. That'll be one of the last things we do. So we'll just mold those separately and set them aside until we're ready for them. So making sure that I make nice clean cut along this Greek key pattern, and it's working pretty well. I did have a new blade in my X-Acto, so I think that helps a whole lot. Alright, now we're ready to start pulling them out. Now usually with these the head stays pretty much intact just because it's such a big blob. It's not much really that could break off of it, except like if you had a baby, maybe ears would break off or something like that, but we don't have his ears on, so we're just going to pull him right on out. There he is! Baby Yoda! Hello! And the mold looks good. Just looking at, all the different indentations. This is what will go into the silicone mold when we get ready to put that in. There are some little pieces of clay that break off, and you definitely want to get those out because if they're in between the silicone and the mold, they'll make a little lump. So I'm going to get him separated. I'm trying to get the wires out because I just don't want the wires to inadvertently poke through the mold while I'm trying to maneuver all these pieces out. So I know that the hands and the feet are going to be hard because there's little tiny pieces, so I'll be manipulating those a lot, and if that wire is sticking out while I'm doing it, there's just a really good chance it's going to scrape or poke through the silicone. Although I will say this dragon skin silicone is really tough. Alright, there's the body. Get that part out. And now for the hard part. I did put a release agent in here, and somehow or other I feel like... Oh, no, I didn't put a release agent. I'm thinking ahead to when I do it with the silicone. Yeah, when you do it with the silicone, you have to put a release agent because silicone will stick to silicone, but it doesn't stick to much of anything else. So it really didn't, it wouldn't stick to the clay. But when you're doing the silicone in it and you do the release mold, you have to be really careful to get it down into the fingers and toes. It's not easy to do that because that spray just kind of stays where you spray it. So you really got to work it down in there, maybe even get, like a Q-tip if you can, and get it down in there. Even when you do it like that, it's really hard to get out. So what I'm doing now is the fingers broke off, so I'm trying to pull the fingers out. You want to make sure you get all the pieces of clay out, because if you don't, when you do the silicone, it'll just be a blank place where that piece was. So we got all of Baby Yoda out of the mold. Now we're going to start doing the silicone coatings for the ears. So the way I decided to do that is I'm going to drill a hole carefully in this thick part of the ear. And I say carefully because throughout this procedure and the next one that I'm already working on, this clay is so brittle. It cracks really easy. I mean, you just touch it and it cracks. I'm really trying to find some Fimo Soft or Fimo Professional in the big blocks, this flesh color. And can you believe it's just none in the United States of America? I actually emailed the company last night and asked them, like, what's going on? You can't get these big chunks of flesh color Fimo in the United States. It's a company in Germany, Stadler. And we'll see if I hear back from them. The only place I could find, I could even see it available, was a company on eBay who is overseas. It's not a local company. So I don't know if they're changing something and they're letting inventory go down, till they, like a new product or new packaging. I'm not sure what's going on. I know they did reformulate the original Fimo into what's now the Fimo Professional. And that was a product I used many years ago. The regular Fimo was very, very hard. It was so hard, like you had to have a pasta machine. You could not condition it with your hands unless you were had gorilla hands or something. But it was very hard for me. Then they came out with Fimo Soft, which was better. It was softer. But sometimes you want it to be a little hard because when you're molding, you don't want, to mold something and then it just morphs into something else, sort of melts because of its softness, or you just barely hit it and it makes, a dent in it. So maybe they have reconditioned their original hard Fimo into a new product called Fimo Professional, which is a little better. And maybe that's kind of coming, but it hasn't moved out into the manufacturing, out to the shipping lanes yet. But I mean, if anybody knows anywhere you can get it, let me know. And I'm looking for the big blocks, the 350 gram blocks. I don't want the little ones. I'm not going to buy 15 little blocks to make a doll. But that's what I'm trying to do now, is make a silicone baby. So this was sort of my prototype to try out the process to see what I needed to change, if I did something different. Actually, after this, I went ahead and made a second Baby Yoda. And then yesterday, I got an email from Etsy saying, you have to take your Baby Yoda off of our site. Actually, they took it off. So apparently Disney has sent Etsy a cease and desist order, or they're going to be sued, because they have about 4,000 Baby Yoda products that people are making, everything from crocheted items to clay items. And then, of course, I had my silicone baby up for about a week. And so anyway, I don't know what I'm going to do with two Baby Yodas now. I mean, I'm going to keep one of them for sure, but I've got to figure out something to do with the second one. So anyway, we're doing the same process with the ears that we did with the body. We're putting on coats of this dragon skin, and this is still the dragon skin fast. So it's a little easier to do this because it's not so much, and I don't have the time rush. I'm putting on a second coat now, And after this, I'll do green, and then I did brown. And these worked out really great. The only thing I would change if I did this again is I'd have to remold the ears. I couldn't change this mold. I don't think, I don't know. I try to think of a way I could do that by adding to the original clay piece, maybe slip it back in there and then add to the top of it. But the ear ends, it is molded, or it's designed so that the ends of the ear near the head are exactly going to fit against the head. Because I put the clay against the head to get that curve so I would have the perfect shape when I got the ear out. But what I didn't account for was when I'm pouring it, you really need to have that excess lip. So like on the baby, you have the pouring spout, you have that upper part, so you can have a little bit of an overflow or whatever. You really needed to have that with this. And the reason is because they're curved, the level of the silicone, because they're going to be poured standing straight up, not like they are now, they're pointed down. The silicone can only rise to the lowest point, so you've got the upper points that won't have any in it. So when I made the first Baby Yoda and the second one, I still had to use these ears. I had to add on to the upper part and the lower part with some additional silicone once I got ready to attach it to the head, or there would have not been any product there. You can see that there's that curve down in the middle. So the silicone is going to rise up to that, and after that it'll spill over. So I'll show you how all that works when we get to that part, but I had to take some silicone and harden it, get it thick, and then sort of mold a piece onto the upper part and the lower part so that it would fit against his head. It wouldn't be just, a flat piece of silicone trying to stick it to the head. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a wire in the ear, and hopefully that's going to help hold the silicone ear to the head, in addition to me putting some silicone glue along the edge. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning up some of the silicone that spilled over. I want to be able to get the clay out, and we're just going to fold it back on itself, but I need to get to the clay to be able to separate it. This would have also helped if I'd had that lip, because I would have had a section of silicone above where the clay was. It would have been easier for me to separate it. That wasn't too bad, but it was harder trying to get the silicone out because it was right up next to the top of the silicone mold. But at this point I'm just trying to open this up as best I can, and there you can see how it looks. And then we're just going to open this up and fold it back on itself, just like a glove. That's how this works, a glove mold. And there it is. So you see how tough that dragon skin is. You can turn it completely inside out, and then you can turn it back and it's ready for another mold. It's really tough stuff, works well. I have high regard for dragon skin. So that's what's left. Alright, so we've got our two ears out, and we're ready to start to mold them. But before that, we have to make a piece to hold them standing straight up. I tried several options with like just bottles and things, but I'm going to have to make something out of the freeform air as a mother mold to help hold these up in a mostly upright position, because nothing that I found would keep them standing up, because they're standing on that point, is very unsteady. So I had just enough of this left that I think I can make a sort of easel type mold for them to sit on, slightly slanted backwards. Now, another thing I would do differently if I did this again is I would make a front piece and a back piece for them, because when you fill up something that size with silicone, it expands it, and it's not so thick that what you're filling it up with doesn't push it out. So it made the ear thicker than I really wanted it to be. So this is another thing that I learned from this. Even though I'm setting them up straight and nothing is not supported, and that part worked, I didn't think about the middle part pooching out when I put the liquid silicone in it. So now this is going to have to set overnight to harden and dry. So we're going to have to wait till the next video to get on with the project. But that's where we are now, and it's coming right along. And as I learn, I'm going to tell you what I learned so you don't have to make the same mistakes that I made. But it's all been very interesting, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying working with the silicone and working with the clay. So I hope you guys are too. We've got a few more videos coming for this project to finish him up, and I hope you'll stick around. And if you haven't already, I hope you'll subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thanks, and bye.